In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Ky Garvey. Thank you for listening.
Mary Colussi, welcome to Totally Lit.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So you are the Penguin Literary Prize winner for 2025. How does that feel?
It feels wonderful. It was extremely shocking at the time. Just under a year later, it still feels extremely shocking. I was not even expecting to be shortlisted. So to win the prize was a real surprise and a real privilege, obviously. And it's brought me to work with a lovely publishing team at Penguin Random House. So I feel very, very lucky to have won.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about what led you to entering?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd written my book Touch Grass, which is my debut novel and the novel that won the prize. I'd written the first draft of it about a year and a half before the competition had opened. So I'd gone through, I think the number I've come up with is like 3.5 drafts before Penguin got its hands on the manuscript. And I was at a place where I was starting to think, I would like to sort of query this. I'd like to maybe get this on some people's desks. It sort of feels like I've taken it as far as I'll be able to take it just on my own. It felt like the point where I needed to bring other people into the process to sort of push the work to where I wanted it to be. So I found that competition, and I knew obviously Penguin Random House has a very good reputation, and something that I chatted about with other Penguin Prize winners is the fact that they request the whole manuscript, which is quite unusual in writing competitions. And to me showed like how committed they were to really seeing where your project was at as a whole rather than working. So like there was sort of, if you had a whole manuscript and you felt comfortable with it, it was a really rare opportunity to sort of get the whole thing into an editor's or literary figure, whoever's on the judging panel that year, into their hands. So it's a really rare opportunity. So I decided I was going to enter it. And then 2 weeks later, it closed. And in those 2 weeks, I did like a sort of speedy redraft where the main thing I did was there was like a fairly major plot hole that had escaped my notice in all of my other redrafts. So I had to really quickly sort of plaster over that before I sent it away.
And what happened next? Did you just get an email with long listing, shortlisting notifications, or was it as simple as that?
It was as straightforward as that. There was, as far as I know, was no long list, or if there is, it's just internal. They just tell you at the shortlisting stage. So I got an email, Meredith Kernell, who's my publisher and is a wonderful editor and publisher at Penguin Random House, where she reached out to me, and I believe I think it was 5 of her people who were shortlisted. There are 6 of us in total, and said, "Hey, you've been shortlisted. We'll let you know in a couple months." And I remember I was sitting at my desk, and I sort of just like, I saw the email and I saw that it was from Penguin, and I thought it was
Open that email.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, spam. No, I was like, and I knew it was from a human being. But
Yes.
that's why, and so like, because if you get a rejection email, it's probably going to come from like Penguin Random House, the entity, but this was from like a real human person. And I just like, I was sitting at my desk and I just like put my head on the table and like had to take like a out-centering breath because I was like, no way, there's no way I got shortlisted. So yeah,
I'm literally wriggling in my seat. So exciting.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind.
And then the next step when you found out that you had won, was that an email as well?
Yeah, it's funny. My phone number got lost in the sauce in like the sort of 6 months between me entering and me winning. So that was also an email. And the email came like about a week or 2 before I expected it to come. They kind of told us, we'll tell you in June. And I actually got told at the end of May. So I really wasn't expecting it at all. And it was an email from Meredith again. And the first 2 sentences were like very dry, like, we met to judge the prize. Congratulations on being shortlisted. And like sort of my first thought is like, okay, I didn't win. Because you would start with like, congratulations, but like that's not how Meredith rolls. And so like the third line down was like, congratulations, we chose Touch Grass. Let's publish it. And I was
buried the lead.
I know, buried the lead. She's a cool cucumber. She's a true professional. And I was alone in my house. I was living in a share house at that point. And I kind of had told myself, like, if in the off chance I win, I'm going to wait to tell my family in person because I think that'll be really fun. And then I was alone in my house on a Tuesday afternoon and I was like, screw this. So I immediately FaceTimed everyone.
Amazing. I love it. Winning the prize, is that guaranteed that your manuscript will be published? Is that the big part of the prize?
Yeah, so the prize is an offer of publication from Penguin Random House, which came like in that email she sent me. That was sort of the next line down was like we're thrilled to offer you a publishing deal. And the cash prize is $20,000, which if you take the publishing deal is in advance. And if you can choose not to take the publishing deal and then it's just prize money. So it depends on what you want to do. I don't think anyone's not taken the deal.
No, thank you. I won't be published.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine?
It's a lot of work to get to that point and be like, actually, like
I can go somewhere else. No, that would be, I'm just imagining that experience. Sounds very exciting. I suppose we should talk about your book. Would you like to tell me about the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, the book is called Touch Grass. I got to keep the title the whole way through. They never made me change it.
Oh, amazing.
Sort half anticipating. And the sort of elevator pitch for Touch Grass is it's about a woman who's living in a near future city version of reality who wakes up one day and she's not in her own body, she's in a cactus. And whether or not that change is better for her and for society at large. So this sort of like bodily, she calls them departures, but this sort of consciousness swapping between body and object becomes endemic amongst the population.
So she can move around to not just stay in the cactus.
It's not cactus exclusive. The cactus is just her favorite. So I think she's a radiator. She is an ice cream bar. At one point, she's the rain. Like she kind of
How
jumps
did she
around.
avoid getting eaten as the ice cream bar? That would have been a bit.
That's an excellent
precarious.
Point. And it would have been precarious. And it's a very fine point that I'm sorry to say I didn't consider. In the sequel, she'll be a Dove bar.
And she survived.
And she made it.
So the premise is society better off with being able to change from your body to an object, or just her specifically being able to do that?
Well, it's her specifically, and then it becomes more like it's happening to her on her own. And then slowly as the book goes on, you're realizing that more and more people are experiencing this. And slowly society, as it does, like develops like terminology and vocabulary in a sort of response to this new phenomenon. And it really came from I like would describe it as like an internet book written by someone who hates the internet. Like the thing I was really thinking about was the sort of derealization and depersonalization of living in a digital world where you are so in so many different ways separated from the physical experience of your body, of nature, hence touch grass. Yeah, so it was about like, is it just easier if we sort of surrender our physical selves and live in a sort of ether, limbo, whatever you want to call it? Or is it worth like taking on the challenges that a physical self presents, even when, the material reality of life sometimes makes that very difficult to maintain?
Well, just embracing like the mundane of just being yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge part of it as well. And just like the fact that, a lot of it is mundane. A lot of it is terrible and boring. Like the protagonist of my book, like she's really annoyed she has to feed herself 3 times a day, which is something it is annoying. It's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of upkeep. And that's something that like right after I finished university and I was living on my own, like outside of the context of university for the first time, I remember complaining to my sister about it. And I was like, I just made lunch and you're telling me that now I have to make dinner. It was exhausting.
So were there any other books or authors that had inspired your story, or was it something you were just daydreaming about and came up with?
So the sort of genre I would put it in is speculative fiction, which I sort of describe as like soft sci-fi or soft sci-fi with big sort of fuzzy borders. And I've been really lucky to have read like really brilliant work in that genre my whole life. I've always been drawn to science fiction, speculative, dystopian fiction. So books that have had like a huge impact on me were Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, Severance by Ling, Emily St. John Mandel's work just in general. Like say her, so she probably most famous for Station 11, but also her book Sea of Tranquility. I read while I was sort of in the midst of the editing process, and that had a huge impact. Kevin Wilson's Nothing to See Here, which is a book about, it was really famous. It was like it had a big moment like 10 years ago, which is about someone who becomes a nanny to a pair of children who like spontaneously burst into flames.
Oh,
And it's just sort of like dealing with that. And it's like it's not like a horror book. Like it's very sweet and funny and humane. And so yeah, I've just always been drawn to stories like that where it's like the realities of day-to-day life, but things are just a little bit off and things are just a little bit skewed. I recommend any and all of those books to anyone. They're all excellent.
so now you've drawn me into your story. I'm going, so if I turn into a cactus over there, can I leap to another object? Can you travel doing
You can.
that? That's amazing. I
You
love it.
can.
Like no walking. That's incredible.
It sounds nice. Yeah, in many ways, like my back's been hurting for the past couple days. So I'm just like, ooh, if I could just like take a break for just a
See
second
someone
and go,
else.
yeah,
And
just
is
go be
it
a cactus.
is it only inanimate objects, or can your characters move into animals and things like that as well?
So that becomes a plot point is people start possessing one another. And so there's,
Yeah.
yeah, so that it becomes a point of contention. It's considered, as you would imagine, very rude, very uncouth. So as the sort of phenomenon progresses, it sort of changes in strange, unwieldy ways. And one of the ways it does is moving from inanimate objects to things with consciousness. So animals or people. I guess maybe a plant has a conscience. It's also a discussion that happens.
It's making me think of a movie. I just had to Google it on my phone. Fallen that has Denzel Washington in it, and that is a demon that's moving from person to person.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
You're a little bit younger than me, so you may not have seen it. But
I love
there's
Denzel.
I do love Denzel as well. There's scenes where the demon is just traveling through people along the street, like he just touches the other person and just moves into the other body.
Hmm.
And Denzel Washington can see it and can't do anything about it. And he's just running away from him by moving through the people in the street. But yeah, it is an interesting. Wouldn't it be great if we could do stuff like that, but for good instead of evil?
Yeah, if it not for demonic purposes. But yeah, it's a very an image like that is a really compelling one because I think it speaks to sort of simultaneously our desire to have control and have autonomy over our personal selves, which is obviously a strong sense and a strong instinct. And then also there's the compromises you have to make of like living in a society, living in a city as I was at the time, where it's just like, you are in contact with people all the time. And it's a wonderful thing and it's a beautiful thing. But it can be overwhelming or it can, yeah, sort of it can get to a place where it feels a little bit you can be walking through a crowd and be like, is there a demon following me? Like there is,
It could be.
if it happens to Denzel. But yeah, there it's like the comfort and then also the comfort of having a body and then also sort of the inherent I hate to say horror, but yeah, of having a body as well.
And they start to break down, which is the problem.
Yeah,
Um,
that as well.
and there are so many books and movies that focus on those sort of topics of like being John Malkovich. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie, but
Hmm.
they go inside him, and that's such a strange movie, but iconic as well. But then there's other movies where there's millionaires who are trying to outlive death and
Hmm.
need the perfect body so that they can live forever. And there's so many ways you can go with those themes. I think. What has the reception been to the book so far? That it's not out yet with everybody, but have you been getting ARC readers and things to give you their response?
Yeah, so the arcs are sort of out there. The book comes out officially on June 2nd, but the arcs have been out there for like maybe a month or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I said this to someone else I was having a chat with, but I was like, for the rest of my life, every time I meet someone who has like sort of an arc loose in the world, I'm going to be so nice to them because I just know they're a nervous wreck.
Oh,
And
it's
it's just,
stressful.
it is very stressful. And I'm sure like the actual book being on the shelves will be stressful as well. But because the arcs obviously comes before that step, there is a sense of like, it is like viscerally sort of unsettling to be like, oh, this was like in my head for a really long time. And now it's not in my head anymore. Um, but people have been really wonderful about it. I'm not a person, I'm not a writer who shares my work at the early stages. I want it to be as close to completely done as possible before I let other people get their hands on it. So I really didn't like kind of the only feedback I had was from the Penguin Literary Prize where they're like, you won. And I was like, fantastic, which is great feedback because it comes with a check. And, but I didn't really like, none of my friends had read it. No one in my family had read it. And yeah, people have been extremely generous, extremely lovely. It got a review in Books and Publishing. That was like my sort of first official review. That was very generous. And they seemed to really get what I was doing, which is so reassuring. Because again, it's a strange book. Like I would put it in like weird girl lit. So there is a chance and a reality that some people like it's not going to speak to everyone, and no one piece of work can, obviously. And then James Mackenzie Watson, who won the Penguin Literary Prize a couple years ago, he did like a really lovely post on social media about it where he said it was really funny. And it's funny, like, recounting this because I'm like, if I get it wrong, if I don't get the quote right, it just sounds like I'm like, and then he said this, and like she said this. But
Did they actually say that?
yeah, exactly. There's a part of me where I'm like, he said it was genius. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. But like, there is an odd thing about sort of talking about the praise you've gotten, as lovely as it is. But people have been really wonderful, and I was really nervous about my parents and my sister reading it, but they really liked it. Or if they didn't, they've done a wonderful job of hiding it. So that was sort of the hurdle I was the most nervous about.
I have just got your website up here and I can give you the quote from James Mackenzie Watson.
Thank you.
It,
Beautiful.
Dizzyingly clever, genuinely profound, and one of the funniest novels I've ever read. So he practically said genius, right there.
He's a
And
lovely guy. He's a lovely
Georgia
man.
Harper, Colussi lets us view our humanity and what might await us through a lens too sharp to be a looking glass. So that's a pretty good quote. I'm chatting to a lot of Penguin authors at the moment, and everyone has mentioned Georgia Harper and the support that she's giving to her fellow authors. I feel like you guys are like Penguin sisters. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so, and like Georgia's just had a book come out. I don't know if she's still on tour, but her book Dove has like just come out, like done it spectacularly well. But to take the time out of your schedule when you're so like when you're promoting and like to just like support another author's work is just an incredible act of generosity.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful to people who have done that, to Georgia, to James. And yeah, I do hope I can pay it forward in some way because again, it's such like a hectic, busy time. So
Now, I did read your bio, and it appears that you write everything. You write fiction, satire, plays, screenplays, TV episodes, script coverage, and some inexplicable additions in your notes app. I've got some notes like that. Like, what did I mean by that? So you're diverse and varied in the work that you produce. That takes a bit of talent as well to be able to write in different genres. Have you had anything else out in the world that you're proud of that you'd like to share with us?
yeah, so I have a BFA and an MFA, and they're both in actually script writing, not fiction writing. And I did have a short film come out last year in collaboration with the lovely director from Afters, the Australian. I'm gonna get the thing wrong. The Australian Film, Television, and Radio School. And that
That's
was
right.
it was a little bit wrong, but it's mostly right. But yeah, I had a short sci-fi film called Threshold come out just last year, and I went to a couple festivals, so that was really great. And yeah, so I pursued script writing and after writing fiction sort of forever, because the thing that bothers me about fiction is it is such a solitary process until you get to like really the very end. And you do a ton of work with your editor, you do a ton of work with your publisher, and it becomes collaborative at that point. But up until that point, it is like you alone in a room that like hopefully has windows. I really like working with other people. I really like working with people who are good at things that I am not good at. Like every time I work with an actor, I'm like, you are miraculous. Like I'm so don't have that skill set. So to be able to work with someone who approaches their craft in a way that I can't even sort of begin to comprehend is really inspiring. So script writing, entertainment, it sort of scratches that part of my brain because fiction writing, and I love, and I have such a passion for it, but it can get a little bit lonesome, as many writers know.
Yeah, it can be a bit lonely, and podcasting is quite lonely at times. At least though I'm having conversations
There you go.
when I'm doing it.
Exactly.
I think to the community, you're not really aware of the writing community when you're first sitting at home writing a book, unless you're maybe going to a writers group or a critique group or something like that. But then once you start, you've got a book published and you're out moving in the writing world, there's this beautiful community to connect with, and you feel much less alone. That sometimes it can be like you're watching everybody's ups and downs and you're cheering everybody on and commiserating when things aren't quite going well, or even sharing like industry knowledge because you don't know about publishing till you're in it. And it's like, oh, is that how it works? Or how long should I wait to? I've sent a query, I haven't heard back. Is it too rude to ask yet? And just getting all that feedback from everybody else. And oh, don't worry about that. Just do it.
Yeah, I like every time I've been in like a group of artistic creative people who are sort of trying to get work made or yeah, get work made. I feel like as soon as someone sort of breaks the ice of being like, I'm struggling with this, or like this is really hard, or like this is a barrier I wasn't anticipating, it's sort of like a dam breaking because there's just like this outpouring of commiseration and support in a way that's really wonderful because it is doing anything in the arts, publishing traditionally, like they are very difficult to do, it's very difficult to do. I did not expect to be in this position whatsoever. You need people in your corner. Like I think all like at the end of the day, your number one supporter needs to be yourself because you're the only one who's going to get the work done. But having people in your corner who know what you're going through and are excited for the wins and sort of tell you to brush off the losses, it's a really wonderful, really powerful thing.
I really had an idea when I first started writing that I would just be a recluse and I wouldn't tell anyone who I was and I wouldn't have to be putting myself out there. And now I'm like posting on Instagram every day. I've realized you can't just like hide. And even though you can write beautiful work and put it out to the world, you've got to be like interacting as yourself as well because no one gets to read it if you don't put yourself out there a bit. And I'm quite reserved in real life. I don't want to do this. And I'm not a performer at all as well. So I don't know how I ended up talking podcast every week about writing, but here we are.
But obviously, you have much to say about it.
Yeah, I think I just want to help all those people that are sitting out there typing their first words. Like it's so daunting each step of the process. And I'm just like, imagine if we're not encouraging our fellow writers, all that beauty that wouldn't get published. And I'm just hoping, well, they might hear some tips that will push them that little bit more forward to submit.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that's yeah, completely correct. Like it's such a loss every time someone decides to give up on it. Because, like especially in today's world where like we are facing such a devaluation of like human writing and human work and sort of the age of AI. It can be, I bet it seems even more sort of daunting to start because you're sort of like, you must feel like you're already so far behind, but there is such a value to it on an individual level and on a societal level. Like I think we all benefit when people are making things and sharing things.
And I think too, like if you go to university, like you've studied a specific course, there's a little bit more, people are a bit more respectful of, oh, you're studying to be a screenwriter. That is a real thing. that is a profession you can follow, although it is a limit. Not everybody is going to have a massive movie, even though they're a screenwriter. But I think with some authors out there that are just at home, they've never done any courses and they're like, I just want to get this story out. There's a little bit less people are like, oh, that little thing that you're doing, that little hobby that you have, and probably don't treat it as like it's a real thing in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an extremely valid point about yeah, doing these courses, which doing them in themselves is a privilege. And I went into debt for both of my degrees, but I was still able to do them. That's much harder to do if you're in a different situation, if you have sort of other things going on in your life. And, it's not fair to treat that as sort of the thing that legitimizes you, because in the end, nothing really legitimizes you other than the fact that you're doing the work. You find endless stories of writers who have produced works that we consider sort of genre defining classics, who just sort of died being like, I'm such a loser, man. It's just and it's nothing, the Nobel Prize, the Pulitzer, whatever. There's always going to be, the only thing that matters is the work. And I say that, and as soon as I said that, I'm like, well, it also matters to get paid and be able to live your life and have the time to write. So that also really, the material part of it does matter, especially if you're sort of looking at someone and you're judging their legitimacy or legitimacy of their work based on anything other than the work. It's you're already losing. You're already not really getting it.
And I think too, as you when you're in high school, looking to select your courses for when you're out in the world, if you say, "Oh, I'm going to do a Bachelor of Arts in creative writing," people are like, "Why? Why would you do that?" It's because that's what I love.
And it's such a shame because I don't think the number, I don't think the only end goal of a bachelor's degree or any sort of degree should be becoming a member of the capitalist workforce. Again, it's important to be able to make money. It's important to be able to take care of yourself and to have a society that will take care of you if you can. But I think again, it's one of those things we all benefit from. If everyone at 18 or whenever spent 3 years just sort of reading a lot and thinking a lot and learning how to be a human being, and they were able to do that without going into crippling debt, I think we'd all be better off as a society. I think we all win in that regard.
I think one great thing about the Penguin Literary Prize and a lot of the other prizes that are out there is it enables you to have a bit of accessibility. If you enter and you win, that gives you that pathway to publication. And it sounds like to me that you probably would have got published in it anyway. But it does enable authors that maybe they've written something fantastic and they haven't been able to connect with the publishing industry. But a prize like this opens it up a bit for people to be able to, one, have a book published, two, have an advance or prize, because that also then gives you time to write as well. And so you can now produce more, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got that prize money I was just finishing up my MFA and I was just running out of money. And I was working really, really part-time, but I was finishing my degree, so I didn't have that much time. And yeah, it did arrive at a point where I was like, ooh,
lucky.
Yeah, I was extremely lucky. And it speaks to the precarity of trying to be a working writer and trying to be a working artist. But yeah, I mean, I would encourage anyone to sort of look into the network of publishing prizes that exist in Australia. One of the wonderful things about the industry here is it's small but mighty. So they're you don't feel like you're sending your work into a black hole. You feel like you're sending your work to the desks of people who are really going to give it a shot, or I'm going to give it a fair go. Penguin worked out for me, but I think HarperCollins has an equivalent prize. Hachette has an equivalent prize in the Rochelle. There's so many opportunities out there that are really wonderful, and yeah, it can just give you time, give you space, and give you the sort of burst of validation you need to keep going.
Also good to just have those little reminders, even if it's a small prize or a small award, that you're on the right track. Because I think sometimes you're writing and this is terrible. I shouldn't be
Mhm.
doing this at all. Why am I trying to do this? And then you'll just get a little bit of validation to go, okay, I've got to keep going because obviously people enjoyed that and thought it was good. So I'm on the right track. But of course, a wonderful prize like Penguin's Prize would be that. I think that's every writer's dream, really.
Yeah, and it's funny having won it because I feel like I entered everything and I applied to everything. And I got so many rejections. And, like, not even, like, good rejections where they're like, "Oh, we enjoyed it, but it's not right." Like, just, like, sort of flat out generic rejections. It feels really strange to me still to sort of be in this position because I won a prize because there was a point where I was like, "Oh, that is like, I'm not a person who wins those things." Like, I'm a person who enters, but I'm not a person who wins those things. And
Now you are.
now I
You're a
am.
person who wins those things.
Yeah, and I'm really glad I kept entering because if I hadn't and, like, there was plenty of, like, empirical evidence that I should stop. Like, I had, like, a whole spreadsheet that was bleeding red from rejections, but, if I had stopped, it would have been
Mm.
the biggest mistake I could have made.
Now, I've got a few questions so my listeners can get to know you a little bit better. What would young Mary think of this outcome at the moment?
What age are we talking?
Oh, maybe late primary school, high school.
Yeah, late Mary, late primary school Mary, and she was struggling. I think it's a question that makes me emotional, to be honest. I think she'd be really happy. I think she writes little Mary writes every single day and never shows her work to anyone, and reading is the thing that means the most to her in the absolute world, and writing is the only thing that she feels like she is good at, and she knows that she loves it, and I think she'd be really happy. I don't know if
Hey,
she'd like the
Mary.
book. I don't know if she'd like
Oh,
the book, but
it's interesting because you think you know what you're going to write, and then something completely different comes out.
yeah, it's a constant surprise.
I wish I was more of a plotter, but I'm more of a pantser. But it means I'm as surprised as anyone when I
Oh,
write
I'm
a
not a
story and it's
plotter.
good.
I'm not a plotter at all. I wish I was.
So, if we were having a party at your place, what literary greats would you be inviting?
Oh, what a great question. I'm assuming living or dead.
Can be either. If you've got
Okay.
someone that you're a big
I
fan of, they're welcome.
I definitely want Octavia Butler there, who wrote the parable books that I shouted about. She is an American queen of speculative fiction and sci-fi who was taken from us too soon. Parable series is unfinished, so that's to me one of the tragedies of literature. I'd love to have Douglas Adams of
Oh,
Hitchhiker's Guide to
yes.
the Galaxy around. I think he'd be a I don't know anything about him, like his personal life, but I'm sure he'd be a great hang.
It's got to be
Um
funny, surely.
yeah, I feel like he'd be like yeah, like a good vibe. Helen Garner,
Oh,
I'd love to
yes.
have her over. That would be fun.
To
Um,
interview Helen Garner, that's my dream.
I can see it for you. If you
I
come to
haven't
my
been brave enough to write and out
oh,
to
you
a
must.
publicist.
You must.
Maybe I will.
Me. If you come to my party, you're invited, by the way.
Oh, amazing.
I'll
Do
hook
an
you guys
intro.
up. Yeah, I'll do an intro. I don't think she's coming to my party. Yeah, and then maybe Maurice Sendak, who wrote like the picture books "Where the Wild Things Are" and "In the Night
Oh,
Kitchen."
he'd be fun. I'm sure he.
Yeah, he is someone who had. I'm not a children's writer. Children should not read what I'm writing, but whenever I saw him interviewed, I was like, this is a man of like great wisdom and like a really unique perspective. So I'd love to have him over as well. So it's a motley crew. It's a motley crew.
That's what writers are, aren't they?
Yeah,
A bit.
exactly, exactly.
Now, if you had an aspiring author come to you for advice that they wanted to break into the industry, what sort of advice would you give them?
I would tell them you need to finish a project to prove to yourself that you can. And it doesn't need to be a novel. It can be like if you're a poet, if you're like, I want to write 5 poems this year. I don't know how much poetry poets write, but if you're a playwright, it's a play. Like you need to get to the finish line And even if no one ever sees that piece of work, it is so important to be able to prove to yourself that you can finish a full length piece of work. That was something that really haunted me for a while is I'd start things and I'd never finish them. And sometimes you do need to abandon projects. Like I don't believe it's sort of like dragging a corpse across the finish line, but you need to find something that you will finish. And then my advice with the industry stuff and like sort of publication and stuff like that is I read a great, I didn't write it, I wish I wrote it. I read a great novella length essay called On Writing and Failure. I never remember who wrote it, but it's really brilliant. You can find parts of it online. And in that, his sort of perspective on failure is like every time you get a rejection, that's just proof that like you're trying. And if you stop getting rejections, that's proof that you're not trying. Like that is the problem. So I like that sort of completely changed how I thought about my own rejections and my own sort of philosophy of failure, which as I mentioned was developed at that point. So yeah, get comfortable with rejection, make rejection part of your craft. Yeah, and no, I think those are my two pieces of advice. And use the Oxford comma. Love an Oxford comma.
Does Stephen March sound correct for On Writing
Yes,
and
that's who
Failure?
it is.
Yeah.
That is who it is. Yes,
Oh.
On Writing and Failure, I really recommend. I think it's like 60 or 70 pages long, but it is really, really excellent. A really great piece of work.
And just a tricky question for the end. Is there anything you can share with me that my listeners might find surprising?
Surprising. And this is the point where I explain why I have an American accent. Okay. The surprising thing about me is I am in fact Australian. I just sound like this. I am a dual Australian American citizen. I was born here, have Australian parents. Everyone in the family sounds Aussie except for me. I just happened to learn how to talk in the East Coast of the US because we moved over there when I was young for my dad's work. So I'm the only one stuck sounding like this.
I grew up, my best friend's family was Scottish, and I, at that time, had a Scottish accent as well because I spent so much time with them.
But the Scottish accent's so good. Like that's
Mm.
delightful. I love the Scottish accent.
I cannot replicate it now, though.
It was there and then it was gone.
Yeah. Now that I'm not hanging out with Scottish people, I sound Australian again.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
think
I like the Australian accent too, but I love the Scottish one.
the Aussie accent is so soft. I think that we just pick up wherever we are, we pick up the accent of where we're living at the time. But the American accent really seems to hang around though when you come back.
Well, and it's just there forever. And like, and so I have a Boston accent technically. I live like outside of Boston, then I lived in New York for a while. And it's just like,
wicked.
yeah, like
Yeah, I
wicked
can't even
smart.
sound American.
Like I'm parking the car. And then in America, I will say certain things with like Australian intonations. And then they're like, what are you doing? Are you just pretentious? And I'm like, no, there's this whole thing. Like it's real complicated. But yeah, so unfortunately, I sound like this forever.
I feel like Australians are very attracted to the American accent. Like we find someone with that accent immediately more interesting, regardless of what they're actually saying.
I would like to think that's true. I don't know if that's been borne out by my experience, but I remember in the US, my parents could get away with anything because they had Australian accents, and Americans are so charmed by it. And then I open my mouth and they're like, "Oh, she's from here." And I'm like, "Yeah."
So maybe it works in reverse, whichever country you're in with a different accent.
Exactly. That's the hope.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Mary. It's been great to chat. Very intrigued by your book. I've got a copy here. I'm going to get stuck into it. It sounds like it's my jam. So appreciate the chat and best of luck for the launch. Will you be traveling around for the launch?
Yeah, I will be. So the launch itself will be on June 2nd at Glebe Books in Glebe in Sydney. And then I'm sort of popping around Australia for the next couple months. So I'll be at sort of different festivals, going to Canberra at one point. But if you're interested in like what I'm up to or want to see what I'm up to, the best place to find me online is Instagram. And I'm just at Mary Colussi there. And I'll keep people afloat of what's going on there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Mary.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/totallylit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.